everybody, and welcome all to GameGuru MAX live broadcast number 45. That's right, we've been doing many of these things, and this is the thing number 45. For anyone who's brand new to this broadcast, or is joining us for the very first time, the format is rather very simple. And it begins with me asking if anyone can actually hear me. It'd be great if there was a gadget which actually says, yes, Lee, everybody can hear you. But I don't have such a gadget. So what I do, I ask everybody out there, and then someone says, yes, Lee, we can hear you for the 45th time. And I only find out when I see it in the chat. And I can see it in the chat, so thanks very much. And the format is you get to ask your questions. Put a question mark at the end so I can find them quickly in the chat. Maybe in the future we'll improve this with a moderator who can find the questions and then they can stack them up for me so I can get to them even quicker to give us more time to listen to answers instead of listening to me umming and ahhing through a chat list trying to find an actual question that's related to the thing I've been talking about. But that's for the future. For right now, please just put a question mark in. I will definitely find it and I will answer them in order. The questions I don't get to answer live, I will put in the GameGuru forums in written form along with the recording of this broadcast. So that's the basic form of it, and for the rest of the time I get to witter on about what we've been doing internally in the development of GameGuru MAX, and boy do I have things to show you. You like it, not a lot, but you like a little bit of it. So I'm just going to launch the software straight up and we'll get straight into it. The things I'd like to show you today is what you're going to be able to play with on Friday. That's right, anyone who pre-orders GameGuru MAX will be able to get access to the development builds, and we release them every Friday, rain or shine. So what you see here today, I will be able to give to you on Friday, if you're a pre-order user, that is. So the big crux of Friday's update, what's new in this Friday's update, it's the undo system, the long-awaited undo system. And it's an undo system that does more than one stage of undo. Much to the relief of anyone in GameGuru Classic Land, it's like, well, you had an undo system, but it only undid one thing. It's kind of useless. Or next to useless, I should say. So I'm just going to go straight in and demonstrate what I've got so far. It's not 100%. There's one bug that I can't identify, and there's no redo. But I've got a really clever idea how I can use the undo system, effectively the undo system undoing itself, to act as the redo. I'm not going to complicate it and certainly not try and explain it, but it's pretty elegant. It means there's no new code. It's just basically an extra array in the stack and everything will be hunky-dory. But all you need to know is what I'm going to show you right now, which is if I drop down 3 barrels like so and I press Ctrl Z, it will undo them. So it's like I never added them at all. I could do other things. I can add 3 barrels, move that one, move that one, move that one, and I can bring them back to their original position. If I go back even further in the stack, it actually remembers I added them in the first place, and it even undoes the adds. It also remembers things like deleting out of order, so I can delete this one, then this one, then this one, and it will remember the order in which I deleted them. Happy days. Finally, there's another thing. In fact, I won't do that because the stacks, and I'll talk about this a little bit later, the stack is infinite. You can also do groups. So if I drop in 4 barrels like so, and then range select them and move them, and do Ctrl Z, it moves them back to the original position. Not as straightforward as you might think. Each barrel kind of has its own event for being moved, but the user action is that you did it in one go. You moved them once, you move them all back. So there's actually a clever system in place to group events together for a user action item on the stack. Again, try not to bore you with all the horribleness, but I could sort of delete it and bring it back. So it actually handles multiple objects as well. And as I said, the only thing that's left to go in before I do some rigorous testing is the redo stacks, which, like I said, will lend heavily from the existing code. The other great thing is it's a pretty universal system that I've implemented. I always maintain that a simple solution is an effective solution because it's easy to manage and maintain. And this one is about as simple as you can get, and you still get all that flexibility and power. Such that when we introduce the new terrain system, so you're sculpting and painting and doing other things that could be potentially hugely destructive acts, the same undo system is capable of doing exactly what you see with objects for manipulating, deleting, adding, all the rest of it. At the moment I've just identified objects and terrain, but as I said, it's universal. If any other system comes online that requires a good undo system, it'll just drop in and it can do that as well. So I'm really pleased with the undo system. On Friday, if you're lucky enough to get a build, please check it out. Let me know what you think. And if we've missed any edge cases. Now, 2 edge cases I do want to... This is the first, by the way. In 45 broadcasts, I have never asked you guys and gals an official question. And the questions are, the first one, should the undo system, this, reverse properties? So let's say I clicked materials and I set that to transparent. Should the undo system, when I do Control Z, undo that change? Because if you think about it, I could change it there, then scroll out of the way and forget about it. When I click Control Z, nothing would seem to happen in the main 3D level editor. It's because there was some secret property that got undid here. Now there's a big pool of opinion that you shouldn't really have this sort of minutiae of undos within the properties. One suggestion that came from our internal coding team, and I just did a really horribly crude sketch, is a button here called Revert Settings. And what that would effectively do is as soon as you click on any object, so you click that, at the moment you clicked it, it remembers everything down here. And you can make all the changes you want, then click another object and make more changes, click another object, make more changes. But let's say you clicked on an object, made loads of changes, and I go, oh, I've messed it up. Oh, that was the wrong object. What did I just change? Where are they all? There's just a button, Revert Settings. And it'll basically put everything back before you messed with all the object properties that are on your right hand side of the page. So those are your options. Do we basically undo every single thing you do one at a time? Do we undo it all in one go based on, say, a clock? So it remembers, 10 minutes ago it was a certain thing, you undo to that. That'd be very difficult to track. Or a button to revert those settings. So that's the first question. And the second question, which is of concern to me personally, is do we keep the undo system stack infinite? At the moment, it's infinite. You just use up memory. So the more you use the software, the undo stack's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. If you've been editing for 2 hours, your undo stack will have tens of hundreds of thousands of events stored in it. Every single thing, the positions, whatever it is you choose to store in that undo stack is now stored for prosperity until you cancel the software and relaunch it. My concern is that that's just going to gobble away at memory. So my question is, should we put a cap on the undo stack? Say 50 events. Now, I'm speaking for me personally, I won't remember what I was doing 50 events ago, and I don't much care to revert back to that point. I'm more likely to save my level periodically under different file names if I want to get back in time that far. Undo to me is more of a sort of a on the spot, oh, I need to undo that. Not a, I'm going to go back half an hour. So the second question is, should we put a cap on the undo system stack? If so, what kind of a number are you thinking? So every action, so a move is an action, a delete is an action, an add is an action. How many of them actions should we store before we just start deleting oldest items on the stack? And I look forward to listening to your answers. Sorry, listening. If only we all could talk at the same time. No, I will read your answers after this broadcast. So that's just half of what I wanted to show you, because we're now in the phase now where we can start bringing in lots of assets every week. So every Friday we're going to keep adding more and more assets until you are sick of assets. So the two things I want to show you are Sue the Survivor, which is a new character. Remember, all the characters that we show you were built using our character creator, and you can switch and swap body parts at your own time. See, she's defaulting to some really dark shades there, but I kind of like this trick. So go to eyeglasses, set reflectance to 100, and now she's sort of reflecting the sky in her huge sunglasses. And the one I'm really proud of, and actually took some coding time away from the undo system, but I think it was worth it because it was supporting the artists who are constantly producing art for us, is our foot planting system. Yes, what's that, Lee? What's foot planting system? Let me just set this to zombie walk, which you'll actually get in Friday build, but it won't do too much at the moment until we have a full AI system to back it up. But if I run the software now, look what you got. Now this is kind of the first time you'll probably have seen this in GameGuru. I am not controlling the speed of this zombie. What's actually happened is the animator has figured out the foot planting for that zombie, and I use that animation data. It's the bit O1 offset shift, if anyone's interested on the technical side, and then erase that from the animation and add it to the physics system. So now I'm actually using the animation data to actually move the object, and what's better is, because it's the physics object that's moving, look, I'm being pushed out the way. If you actually saw this animation in the raw, the actual object center is like, 2 meters behind this zombie, about here. But because of the system I've implemented, I can now track in one axis direction any animation data that is propelling an object, in this case a character, in a particular direction. And I'm really pleased about it. What it means is we no longer have sliding characters, and if the animator wants to do something really crazy with the feet or any sort of movement stuff, we can actually now do that, and you get that nice authentic foot planting effect. And so you're going to expect that with all of our animations for the characters from the character creator. So hopefully you like that. I certainly did. It's all about being faithful to the original vision of the artists. And what we want to do, and we'll continue to do, is keep bringing the rendering, the visuals, the animation, that quality closer to what the artist wants to see. And we won't be the ones getting in the way of it. And the result will be a very high quality visual experience. And in this particular case, a great gameplay experience, because now the zombie is pushing barrels around and basically making his way through a physical world, trying to eat your brain. So that's what I wanted to show you in terms of assets. There's more stuff. There's more asset revisions and tweaks from our existing asset collection. There's more assets being converted as I speak. So you'll see them, as I said, continue to be delivered into your Friday builds weekly. So that's that bit. That's me finished rambling. Now I want to switch over and look at your questions to see if I can answer them in a semi-coherent manner. Looking at the clock, we have 2 official minutes for questions, probably 5 unofficial minutes for questions, and let's see if we can squeeze under the 20-minute mark, which has become pretty much a standard for nearly all of these broadcasts. So, just cracking on, looking for a question mark. Here's a question right early on. I think this question was actually before the 4 p.m. bell. Will the auto updater update everything that I missed? Will it be up to date on this Friday? Yes, absolutely. There's no succession of iterative patches. You just get the tiny installer, install it, run that tiny installer. Our system is clever enough to figure out what the very latest public version is, grab all the files that you don't have, replace the files you do have that are out of date, and you'll always have the latest version. We're pretty proud of it. We're going to still do a little bit more on the auto updater, but we're pretty happy with how it works right now. And if you find that it doesn't quite do what you need it to do, please post it in the GitHub issues board, and it'll allow us an opportunity to reproduce that and fix it if there is an issue. So looking for another question. Question about when the release date. There is no release date. It's an open release. We're going to continue to work on this software until it hits a certain quality bar. So the release date is more of a release level. When we get to that level of quality and everyone's happy in the community and we're happy with what we've produced, then we'll release it. So there is no date as of today. So looking for a question. Hello, you can hear me. Great. This was the official start of the broadcast. Looking for a question mark. First question mark is from Digifactor Animation. Anything else on multiplayer VR? GameGuru MAX will not have multiplayer in version 1. So by extension, it won't have multiplayer VR in version 1. It will, however, have virtual reality in version 1. And you will be able to get a headset using OpenXR. You'll be able to test your levels in your game in a VR environment. You'll be able to move around and interact with objects and generally play the game that you created in virtual reality. But multiplayer is not on the cards for the first release of GameGuru MAX. NJAB64 put the question mark at the beginning. I guess that's a thing. Hi, is it possible to change the collision type of a model after it has been imported? Currently, not at the moment. Once you've got your object, you've set the collision shape for it, that's it. So that's what the object has. But I agree, wouldn't it be great if you could change that collision mode and its properties straight away? Go into an object property and change its collision attributes. I think it's a good idea. Please remind me again in the forums, and I'll make sure it gets onto our dev plan for be included in the first version. It's a good idea. Loretta M, yeah, so no progress on VR at the moment. As you can see, we're working on the UI, on the graphics, on the asset importing. Then we'll be moving on to the actual gameplay, stuff like that. And then after that, we'll start looking at testing out early versions of how that gameplay plays in virtual reality. But it's certainly not something you should hold your breath on for the moment. But it's definitely part of our dev plan. Here's a question from Kevin Hampson. Can you add an undo history list? Yeah, we were thinking about that. You'd want to be able to see the list to see what you are going to undo. Obviously, if you undo something you didn't want to undo, the redo will be able to quickly fix that mistake. But we are aware that people will want to know what they've just undid. And so we are going to have a prompt system to show you that. Whether you get to see the whole list, well, we'll do some testing and see what works. Don't really want to bombard people with lots and lots of information if they don't need all that information. So let's see what happens. Here's a question from Gazle. Question, is there any plans to make it easier to build indoor areas, question mark, like the old prefab system? There are plans. The plans only may extend to keeping it in developer mode. We currently have something called the structure editor, which can create indoor rooms and corridors. If you load and play the seller demo, that was made using the current structure editor. But we do have an eye on improving that system. But for now, it stays as a developer mode option. What that means is it's an experimental feature. It's not something I'm going to splash over marketing and boxes and whatever it is. It's there if you need it. It's there if you want it, and we have plans to improve it, but we don't want to sort of push that ahead of other things that we consider to be more important. But yes, it's definitely in there if you want to take advantage of it. Just look under the temp menu. You'll actually... Oh no, it's not in the temp, isn't it? No, it's in the... Go into settings and then look for the developer mode tab, and you can actually activate the structure editor from there. So that's where you'll find it. Here's a question from Bird Max. Will this Friday release include the jungle scene competition winners entry? Yes, it will. Yes, it will, just to show it. There you go. So that's the jungle demo. It was a hard one to judge, really, because there's some really great entries. But this was the one closest to what was in our heads when I was thinking of a small, highly detailed jungle. And there's a couple of nice little touches in there that we did not anticipate, which is why it was the winner. And now everyone can actually... load that level in, run around and enjoy a little bit of jungle. It's certainly not the final version. There's a lot of stuff we're going to do along the way in the development. But yes, you'll be able to get that in this Friday's build and enjoy running around all our jungle assets in a nicely thought out level that we literally did. Well, I literally didn't have that time to create, so the competition was a great way to find someone who had a bit more time than me to create a nice jungle. Here's a question with a question mark in it. Asset Junket, will there be a new workflow for FP arms importing? It would be really nice to be able to import your own FP arms directly into GameGuru with some system. There will be no out-of-the-box way of arbitrarily importing the arms and hands of your game experience. It's too technical. You know, you could get a pair of hands. They wouldn't do anything when you bring them into a games engine. There's a lot of tech in the background to make them move, make them animate based on different functions and collisions and all that kind of stuff. So out of the box, the only arms and hands you'll get are the ones that we've provided, but we will be providing a template set of files and a guide on how you can create your own arms and hands and how to animate them and how to set them up so they actually work in GameGuru MAX. And we will be making that available, and follow that guide and be able to bring in your own. But you'll have to have some technical arts skills. You'll need to know 3D modelers, animations, a little bit of Notepad. But yeah, we'll provide a guide to help you in that regard. Looking for another question mark. Here's one from 3Com. IRC scale animations based is unsupported in GameGuru. Is it going to happen in GG Max as well? IIRC scale animation based is unsupported. Not a clue what that is, sorry. My mind isn't giving me any colourful pictures for what that means. So if you're going to elaborate in the forums later on, I will get to that and give you a much more thorough answer. A sentence with proper spell correction and everything. Here's another question from Kevin Hampson. Allow users to set how long history lists. Yeah, I'll read all the ideas for that after this. Just get into some questions. Item stack size. I'll read that later. Second that. Any news on the terrain and when approximately months are we off it? If months away, I can stop asking you. And forum clarity. It's going well. I think of the terrain work as in 3 chunks, 3 big, very important chunks. We are probably a good way in, nearly towards the last 25% of the first chunk, and it's looking very cool indeed. But we're not going to be premature about releasing something that isn't rock solid. And when you get to play with it, it does everything that you would expect it to do for what we promised that it would do at that point. So yeah, but in terms of when you get to see it, well, we're not going to rush these things, so you'll find out about it probably on a Wednesday when you're listening to me talking about what I released on Friday, along with an actual demonstration of terrain. So we haven't actually got any timelines to be able to publicise what we're going to do months and months in the future. The only glimpse you'll actually get is what I talk about today, what I might hint at in the forums and on Discord and other places, and maybe verbally what I might say as to what's coming next. But it's not, I'll never say what's coming in months, probably at most a week or 3. I think that's probably the most we'll be able to predict for you. But yeah, keep an eye out for terrain. It's not a million miles away for seeing the first chunk released to the public. Here's a question from Synchro62. No one has mentioned autosave that I'm aware of. Is this going to be a thing? You're right, there is no autosave system in GameGuru MAX. I presume you're thinking something like Google Docs, where you can just make your level, kind of forget about saving, but then if you get a power cut, you actually go back to your software, it actually remembers what you were doing up to, say, a minute before you lost power. The problem with an autosave system traditionally is that it's a file access problem. It'll basically just grind your system to a halt as it's accessing all the resources of your level and dumping them to the disk. That's less of a problem these days with the advent of many threaded applications. You can access file systems on a separate thread. It can be done relatively low throttled, so you don't really notice an impact on your actual user experience. And it's not an impossible thing to do. So please repeat that in the forum thread. I'll discuss it with the internal team, and we think there's a lot of legs with that idea. We'll add it to the dev plan. Probably not as a high priority, but certainly as let's not forget, that's actually a pretty nice feature, and we'll probably get a lot of people out of jail free card if they suffer power cuts or they've done something. Just remember, autosave will also save you mistakes. So if you're editing, it will save the last craziest thing you did. Whereas save as is always the preferred option if you want to rubber stamp a good version of your level before going on and doing those aforementioned crazy things. So looking at the clock, I have gobbled up all of the official time and all of the unofficial time. I've now strayed well into Beyond Here Be Dragons. So, as is my custom, I will answer the next 2 questions in order of people who haven't had an answer before. So, Synchro, you've had an answer. Asset Junket, you've had an answer. Alab Finn, you haven't. So, is there a cutscene creator, sorry. No, there will be no cutscene creator out of the box. There are ways. In fact, for now, because we're not released Max yet, check out something called Cineguru. It's for GameGuru Classic, but it's a really nice idea, and you can create cutscenes. So have a look at that and give us feedback. Is that a really cool idea? Would you like to see that in Max? Because that's information the authors of Cineguru would like to know. And is there anything that you'd like to see in there that improves upon that, or anything that you think is super useful and has to be in GameGuru MAX out of the box? So check out Cineguru. It'll just start that conversation going. And a new question from Fuzzy Visions: will GameGuru be able to implement within-app game kit code easily? No, out of the box, GameGuru MAX is C++ only, so there's no support for AppGameKit script in any way, shape or form. The closest you'll see, maybe, is if anyone remembers GG Loader for GameGuru Classic, that was a third-party application which took a GameGuru level and actually got it to load in AppGameKit, and then you could actually write your own code from scratch, write your own game code from scratch. But you got the benefit of using the level editor to lay it all out and drop your assets in and stuff like that. So if you want to see that, certainly ask the author of GG Loader whether they want to do a Max version, and then maybe you will get your wish. So thanks very much for all your questions. I know there's plenty more, but as I said, I'm going to answer those later on in the GameGuru forum, along with a recording of this broadcast. And for those who really wanted me to stick to my guns and only do 20 minutes, I profusely apologise, but I do like to talk, and more importantly, I do like to help. You know, if you've got questions, I really want to answer them, but we do need to keep these broadcasts under 4 hours, which is why I try and keep an eye, at least one eye, on the clock. Now, as always, if you are new to this channel, you can get a pre-order of what you're seeing today and help us with the development as we go along, adding more and more features. We're offering 25% discount for anyone who pre-orders. And as I said, you'll be able to get access to Friday builds every Friday, every week, all the way through the development as a thank you for helping us with a pre-order. So until next Wednesday at 4 p.m. GMT, I hope you enjoyed yourselves. I certainly did, and I'm looking forward to bringing you more features and more asset reveals next week. So until then, thanks very much and goodbye.